Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet, read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Gunfighter's Gift, written by coldfireknight. I was sitting at a bar while waiting for the next transport off-world, when movement in the corner of my eye caught my attention. Cutting my eyes over showed me a kid in oversized, threadbare clothes staring back at me. Every once in a while, despite my best efforts to remain an anonymous nobody, as I worked my way out of the sector, someone would recognize me. The ambitious or desperate ones might even decide today was the day. Wasn't sure which one the kid was, but my money was on the latter. Couldn't really blame him, not with as high as my bounty was, but that was his choice, not mine. I kept my head forward. "This is a terrible idea. You know that, right?" The trembling head gave his head a quivering nod. His battered coat still closed around his torso, rather than brandishing any weapons. Yet, this one seemed to have some sense, at any rate. "I'm worth a lot of money, sure, but those monsters deserved what they got." My right hand dropped to hang loose near one of my pistols. Anger filled my voice for a moment. "Don't lead monsters dealing, kids." But only for a moment. "None left here, are there?" As long as he kept calm and didn't make any bad decisions, that's where it'd stay. If not... The kid shook his head, tremors still running through his frame. I turned my head to lock eyes with him. He flinched, but otherwise held his ground. Kid had some backbone, I'll give him that. "How you leave here today is up to you. Alive or dead, don't matter to me." I tossed the whiskey back, closing my eyes while it slow burned down my throat, before I opened them and stood to face him. "Only thing that matters is you getting the choice. You can take your chances, maybe get lucky, and make a name for yourself." I watched him give a little gulp and twitch my hand while sparing a glance at his own shaking hands. "Or you can talk. I got no beef with you, and you won't see me again. Hell, I'll give you some creds for your trouble, too." His face worked for a few moments, fear warring with need, before his eyes shifted to focus back over my shoulder. He shouted, "I'm sorry," and dropped to the floor. I was already spinning, my right hand drawing iron while my left swept my duster back to reveal its twin, when I saw the trio of men running through the door and fanning out, moving to my left. The pistol roared, and I unleashed a pair of shots at the first man and watched him fold, blood fanning out behind him. The man next to him dove, knocking a table over for cover, but shouting when my next pair of rounds struck home. I planted a foot to stop myself, my other pistol clearing its holster and coming level at the same time my attention slid to my third target. He was raising a rifle to his shoulder, trying to get a bead on me. I sent 3 rounds at him, watching him jerk as one took him in the shoulder and the other slammed in his chest. He staggered back a couple steps before righting himself and aiming at me again. "Crap! Body armor!" I ran to his right, forcing him to track me along his weak side. Shots rang out, but trailed behind me, smashing into walls instead. My path drew me in a line, what I hoped was a gap between the front and the rear plates. I squeezed the trigger on my right gun twice more and watched him fall to the ground with a grunt, his lifeblood spilling out beneath him. I was panting now, my heart racing as I turned my attention back to the diving man. He'd screamed, but that didn't mean that I'd ended him. He wouldn't be the first to play possum on me, either. I led with my left pistol, keeping the other trailing towards the armor, when the table shifted and a diver lurched up and out from behind it, firing wildly. My first shot blew a hole through the table and his legs behind it before he could get closer, while the other 2 took him in the stomach and shoulder. Diver collapsed, but not before squeezing off a final shot that grazed my leg. I screamed at the shock, but kept my feet. A quick look at the injury showed me it was a flesh wound, though I knew I was going to limp until it healed. At least the entire team was down, leaving me free to go. The familiar sound of a gun's hammer came from behind me, cutting off my train of thought. I held my own pistols out and slowly turned to see who'd gotten the drop on me.
Stop, mister. Keep looking that way, came a voice cracking on the verge of reaching maturity.
Damn, it was the kid. I twisted my head to look back over my shoulder. Listen, no reason you need to be mixed up in this. Just, walk away and know that he will be the wiser. The bar's door opened and a deeper voice said, Nobody but me. I turned my head forward to see a ghost, or more accurately, a monster. Before me stood the true reason for my one-man crusade, Reggie Vasquez. Guess I should have made sure all that blood meant you were dead. Reggie chuckled briefly before a coughing fit overtook him. I took a step towards him, but he brandished a gun at my chest, stopping me and steadying it as he got his cough under control. Oh, I very much am, or will be soon enough. He tapped his chest. My organs are failing from the damage, and I'm just making sure you go first.
Mr. Vasquez?
The boy asked from behind me. The monster's gaze stayed on me when he responded,
I get the bounty, right, for finding him?
Reggie harumphed at the question. Bounties for dead men. He's still breathing. A wicked smile crawled across his lips. You fix that. Money's yours. I called back over my shoulder. You fix that. Monster's yours too. Silence hung in the air, broken only by our breathing. There was a rustle of clothing behind me from the boy moving. Reggie's smile faded, and his eyes moved to the youth. Well, be done with it already. A shot rang out. I flinched, but saw Reggie's head snap back before he fell limply to the floor. Instinctively, I spun around and dropped to a knee, pointing both pistols at my captor. The boy still held the still-smoking rifle he must have grabbed from armor, his eyes wide. My mind raced, realizing I was out of ammo, and there was no way I could reach him before he could get more shots off. It would only take one lucky shot, and I wasn't interested in testing mine. I eased my pistols down into my holsters and lifted empty hands to show him I was no longer a threat. His face turned shades of green when he looked past me. First time? He nodded, still looking at the body. I understood. He'd have killed you, you know. Probably would have even gotten away with it. Said you were pointing a gun at him. The boy, no. Anyone who took a life was no longer a child. The young man nodded again.
I know. Even with the money, I knew.
He swallowed, the green fading but not gone. Monster's gone now. He was the last. I paused. Unless you count me. Finally, his frozen gaze broke free and lifted to meet mine, so I spoke. Wasn't lying earlier. I'm taking the next ship out. Work's done. You can let me go. I chuckled at random thought. Or not. Hell, someone might still pay a bounty.
Nah.
The young man's skin returned to its natural pale tone, and he placed the rifle on the ground in disgust.
You can go. Ain't no reason to stop you.
I nodded my thanks, dipped a hand in my pocket and tossed a pouch at him. He snatched it out of the air, smooth as you please, and looked inside. His eyes grew wider than I'd seen on a person.
What's this for, mister?
I smiled at him. You gave me my life. Least I can do is stand by my word for that. End of story. Story number 2. You Might Be A, written by Credible333. Grog tried to be subtle, but there is a limit to that when you're trying to peek at someone's anatomy. Can I help you? Lisa inquired as she turned around to see him looking down at her collar. Grog's 4 slim arms involuntarily snapped in front of his head. A Deathworlder twice his size was scary enough for futile defensive instincts to take over. He immediately regretted the implication that she might attack, knowing her to be gentle with fragile sentience. Perhaps that's because she knew his 4 arms couldn't stop a deadly blow from one of hers. It's nothing. I just wanted to. That is, well, if you could, only if you want to. That is to say,
Why were you trying to look down my shirt, and why were you doing it the wrong way? The interesting bits on a human upper torso are in the front.
It's just that Station Master Gray proclaimed that he was irritated at some of the people whose home world isn't so pleasant. I was hoping to determine your coloration to see if he was irritated at you.
This puzzled Lisa. Generally, other sentients didn't discriminate on ethnicity of other species. They either discriminated against the whole species or none of them. They really were colorblind in the Azurus, literally. But you can see I'm white, pink, so why the perving?
Oh, I wasn't perving. He has a problem with Deathworld or Redneck, so I merely wish to determine if your neck was red. If it was, I would warn you, and you are a friend.
Across the room, a booming laugh was heard. The volume alone gave away that it was a Cyrac. Lisa instinctively shifted stance to be ready to dodge. Cyracs were one of the most notorious Deathworlder species, and they seemed to have a big beef with humans. Not humanity, the species. They just seemed to end up in fights with bipeds. Seeing it was Z didn't make Lisa any more relaxed. This Cyrac, however, was leaning back on his rear legs, exposing his soft underbelly, so clearly no fight was envisaged.
It's a cultural term, not a literal. The term is difficult to define, but since you're interested, and since I have a degree in human studies, I will help you. I will attempt to determine if Sergeant Willis here is a redneck Deathworlder.
I think I would know if I were a redneck.
Not necessarily. Let's just begin the determination of your status. If you ever took a tooth as a hunting trophy and you needed a friend to help you carry it back, you may be a redneck Deathworlder. If the wind speeds were higher than city speed limits while you were piloting a wind-powered vehicle on a hostile surface and you planned for that, you may be a redneck Deathworlder. If you were piloting a wind-powered vehicle on hostile surface and didn't plan for wind speeds over city speed limits, but were pleasantly surprised because you'll get there faster, you may be a redneck Deathworlder. If you have ever designed something with 2 million tons of explosives and it wasn't even a bomb, you may be a redneck Deathworlder. If your species developed a weapon used to kill animals 100 times their size, and then 250,000 years later you developed writing, you may be a redneck Deathworlder. If a rumor on your homeworld says that a meter-long horn of a 3-ton, heavily armored, short-tempered beast cures sexual problems and the species almost goes extinct, you may be a redneck Deathworlder. If an empire with 20 times your star systems and 100 times your economy asked you to give up your weapons and you said, "Come and take them," then you had to explain that that wasn't a transport request. You may be a redneck Deathworlder.
Grog was taking notes, fascinated by the concept that seemed to have so many indicators but no solid definition. Another human had been approaching during this exchange, unnoticed. It was amazing how such large creatures could be so silent. Grog had heard that it was because there was a lot of hunting involving humans, both ways, whatever that meant. This one, a male, Grog believed, made Lisa look small. His limbs bulged out as though strong ropes bound his bones. His neck was more a triangle than a straight line. He approached Z far closer than etiquette usually allowed. Grog realized that he was seeing someone get into someone's face.
You're forgetting one sure sign of a redneck there, Professor. What's that? When a redneck hears you say the word redneck, they'll remind you, smile when you say it.
End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 5.7, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Light Jock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.